Hey all, welcome back to my channel. If you are new to my channel, consider subscribing my channel and hit on the notification bell also. Okay, so in today's video, we are going to discuss about automatic functions in Verilog, right? So in the previous session, we have discussed about what is function, how are we going to declare it and define it, and also how are we going to call it. So all these topics we have seen in the previous session. If you didn't see that session, I'll link that in the description box. You can go check it out there. Okay, so in today's video, we are going to discuss about like what is automatic function. Okay, so in order to know what is automatic function, first we need to know how the nature of static function in Verilog is. Okay, so basically, in static function, what happens means, so as soon as you're declaring the function, okay, you know how to declare the function. So as soon as you're declaring the function, the memory will be automatically allocated for that particular function. Okay, so what happens? So even though you're using that memory or not, it doesn't consider. Okay, what happens means even though you're using that memory or not, it is declaring. That's it. Okay, that is in static functions. But in automatic functions, okay, what happens means as soon as you declare the memory, as soon as you declare the function, the memory won't be created. Then when will the memory be created? So when you are calling that function, okay, calling that function means what? In simple words, we are using that function. Is it or not? Yes. So when you are calling the function, nothing but it will return you something. Is it or not? So when you are calling the function, the memory is created in dynamic function. Okay, dynamic function or automatic function, both are same. Okay, so I'll call it as static function and dynamic function. Clear? So in simple words, in static function, the memory won't be created. Sorry, in static functions, the memory will be created as soon as you declare the function. Okay, but in dynamic function, what happens? That is why we are calling it as dynamic. That means the memory won't be created as soon as you declare it, but as soon as you call that function, okay, the memory will be dynamically created, like automatically created as soon as you call that function, right? So this is the major difference between static function and automatic function. Got it? Clear? Okay, so in order to put it in simple words, like in static function, the memory is created as soon as you declare the function, but in dynamic function, the memory is created whenever you call that function. Clear? Yes, this is one of the main difference between static and dynamic. And then about the usage of memory, there is another difference. Like in static function, like if you see this particular example here, okay, you're using, like this is my particular function, okay, and I'm calling it from here. Okay, so in static memory, what happens? As soon as you declare this function, the memory will be created. Okay, so the memory is created, and now what happens when you are calling this function? For example, I'm giving value of a and b as 2 and 3. Now what happens? As soon as I'm giving the value of a and b as 2 and 3, it is returning me some value. What is it returning me? Since it is a addition operator, so 2 plus 3 nothing but 5. So 5 is returned here. So I am allocating this 5 value to this function out. So now what happens? Since it is creating the memory, okay, as soon as you are declaring it, in that memory it will be holding this value. Okay, like function out equal to 5, it will hold this value. So whenever again you are calling this function, okay, in some part of your code, then at that particular point this function will be holding the value of 5. Got my point? Yes. So that means it is storing the value in the memory. As soon as it is returned, the value is stored in some part of the memory in static function. But in dynamic function, what happens means as soon as you are declaring, the memory is not being created. But when the memory is created, as soon as you are calling the function, okay, the memory is created. So whenever the memory is created or allocated, whatever it is, okay, as soon as you're calling the function, the memory is allocated, and then the value, like if you are using the same automatic keyword here for automatic function, now what happens? This is automatic function, so the value is, now the memory is allocated here, not here. Okay, in static the memory is allocated here, but in dynamic the memory is allocated whenever you're calling the function. Now what happens? Now the value is stored here like 5. Okay, but in dynamic functions what happens means, as soon as the function is ended, like as soon as the simulator is coming out of the function, the memory which is created automatically will be relocated automatically. That means will be deleted automatically. Okay, so now what happens in dynamic function? The memory is created automatically, deleted as soon as it ended the function. Okay, so now because of this, the advantage is that the memory usage is limited. Okay, that means whenever we want it, we can create it, and after using that particular process, it is automatically deleted. Okay, so this is about automatic function. Clear? Hope you got a, this is also one of the difference between static and dynamic functions. Okay, hope you got a clear idea on what is static and dynamic functions. So I'm again repeating it in a simple way in order to make you remember. So in static functions, the memory is created as soon as you're declaring the function, and then after the processing it will be holding the values. Okay, in dynamic function what is happening, the memory is not declared as soon as you are declaring the particular function. Okay, that means the memory is not allocated there itself, but when it is being allocated, it is being allocated whenever the function is called. So whenever the function is called, the memory will be automatically allocated, and then when the function usage is over, we will be coming out of the function. That means the simulator will be coming out of the function. So as soon as the simulator comes out of the function, the memory will be deallocated. So whatever that is stored in the memory is also erased. Got my point? So this is how the static and dynamic functions differ. Okay, so this is the syntax, like how you are going to write a automatic function. There is no difference in both static and function and dynamic function, both are same, but the difference is that in dynamic function you will be using the keyword automatic. Okay, if you are not using this keyword automatic, then obviously the function is by default static in nature. Okay, so you don't need to give it as static particularly, but even though you give it as a static function also, it don't throw any error. Okay, hope you got idea on what is static and dynamic function. But in order to make you much more clear on this particular topic, okay, I'm going to explain this with an example for you so that you will remember it forever. Clear? So just give me a second. This is my code, right? So if you see in this code, I have written four functions. Like this is my one, two, third, and fourth function. So if you see the four functions, everything, like what is the variable that I have used in this four functions, what is the display I have written, everything is same. But the only thing that differs is their nature. Like some are static in nature, some are automatic in nature. Okay, if you see my first function, function void, this is static. Since I have not used any keyword, okay, after function, so it is obviously dynamic, sorry, static in nature. Okay, but even though I already told you, you don't need to give it as a static, but even though you have given it static also, there won't be any difference. You will see the output here. Okay, and my third function is automatic in nature. My fourth function is also automatic in nature, but the difference between my third and fourth functions is, in my third function, if you see, I am just mentioning it as automatic in nature. So whatever variables that I am declaring in that, that is also automatic in nature. Okay, but in the fourth function, if you see, even though the function is static in nature, but I have particularly mentioned the data type variables that I am mentioning within that automatic is static in nature. Okay, you can do this, there is no error in this. Okay, you can do this. So now let us see how is this going to work out. If you run this code, let us see the output. So if you see my first function, what is the thing that I have written in my first function? Function void, this is static. So obviously that is static in nature, and I have given the variable count, which is 1. Okay, whose value is 1. And then within the display, I am just incrementing the value of count. Now, if you see in the function, okay, initial begin, I have called this function. Okay, so before calling this function, I have used the repeat loop. Okay, in order to know, we have already discussed about loops, so in that repeat loop I have already discussed it. I will also link that in the description box. You can, if you want, you can go check it out. So whatever we are going to give in the repeat loop, those many times it is going to repeat. So what I am doing, I am calling this function for 3 times literally. That is the meaning of this particular thing. Okay, in the same way, the remaining all functions also I am repeating for 3 times. That is, I am in total I am calling all the functions for 3 times. Okay, got my point? So now in the same way, I have called my first function for 3 times. Now what happens first, as soon as I have called this function, the count value is displayed as 1. Okay, that means it is returning the value 1. Now what happens, again it comes for it goes and function, and then again I'm calling the same function. Now what happens, since it is already having the 1 value, it is holding that value. So now what will be the value of count? Count value will be 1 plus 1, because it is already 1. Along with that 1, it is adding for one more time, like 1 plus 1, 2. Now count is having 2, again it is added for one more time, so 3. In this way, for 3 times I am calling, the value of count is like 3 values. First is 1, another is 2, another is 3. Okay, now if you see the second one, as I already told you, there is no difference between function void and function static void. Okay, so if you see the output, this it is same for both of this. Okay, so I am not going to explain it one more time, because the same function, just the difference is this is static and this is not static. Okay, not static means we didn't mention the static keyword, but by default it is static in nature. Now let us see the interesting part, which is automatic. Now as I already told you, in automatic how the function is going to, like how the working is done. Now if you see the output here, it resembles that. See, it is all ones. Why? Because I already told you, whenever you're calling an automatic function, the memory will be automatically created as soon as you're calling that function. Now what happens, I'm calling it for first time, like repeat 1. Okay, like repeat 1 means I'm calling for first time. Now as soon as I have called it for first time, the value will be 1. The memory will be automatically created, and in that memory the value is 1. Okay, so now what happens, the value will be created automatically and the memory is allocated, and then the value of 1 will be stored. Now as soon as it comes, the simulator comes out of end function, that work is completed. That means that function's work is completed. So as I already told you, as soon as the work is done for that function, the function's memory will be automatically deleted. Right? That means the memory will be deallocated. So that is why whatever we are storing in that memory, it's obviously will be erased. Is it or not? So now what happens? That is why again it is having fresh memory. That means again it should start from 0. Again I am calling it for second time. Even though I am calling it for second time, since it can't hold any value, again the value is 1. Okay, so how many times you are going to call it? Not only for 3 times, if you are calling it for 10 times also, along all these 10 times it will be having some refreshed memory. Okay, not the old memory. So that is why in dynamic you can't have the previous values, you can only have the current values. Okay, because it can't hold the value, the value that it is holding is erased. Okay, now let us see the fourth one. So if you see this fourth one here, this isn't static either. Why is this isn't static either? Because even though this is dynamic in nature, but I am voluntarily making the data type within this as static in nature. So if you see here, I am just displaying the like variable data type. Okay, what is it I'm displaying here? I'm not displaying the function, I'm displaying the variable within the function. And if you see, this variable is particularly static in nature. Okay, but you may get doubt. If you see here, I didn't mention any static. Okay, if you are using a static function, it is automatically static in nature. Whenever you are not mentioning it as static, it is obviously static in nature. In the same way, whenever you are mentioning it as automatic function, then the variables within that also are automatic in nature. If you want that particular variable to be static in nature, then you have to mention that particular thing as static. Okay, so now what happens, since this variable is static in nature and I'm going to display the variable, so that is why, since the variable is static and it can hold value, so that is why it is having the values as 1, 2 and 3. Clear? Hope you got a clear idea on what is static and what is dynamic variables. Okay, this is very important. Like static and dynamic is very important topic, not only regarding functions, because in the upcoming classes like in system verilog you will be dealing with oops concepts like classes. So in that you will be going like more deep about this, what is static and what is dynamic. So in order to have the deep knowledge on what is static and dynamic, you have to know at least the basics of how is the working done in static and dynamic here itself. So that is why I have taken my time separate and I made a separate video on this static and dynamic functions, because this is just a stepping stone for the remaining parts of concepts in system verilog. Okay, so hope you got the clear idea on what is static and dynamic. But if you are still confused on static and dynamic, you can comment me in the comment box, or you can ping me in my LinkedIn or else in my Telegram channel, in any of the social media platforms. Okay, I'll be replying you as soon as possible. Okay, clear? So that is all for today. Thank you.